Welcome back to the Running Y Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Slinsky, aka the Running Y Mom. Today's episode is all about a revolutionary solution for breastfeeding mothers, freeze-dried breast milk. Joining us today is Tirza Jova, the CEO and founder of Milk by Mom, a company dedicated to empowering breastfeeding mothers through innovative milk storage and transportation solutions. With over 15 years of experience in international business and marketing, Tirza brings a wealth of knowledge and passion in the world of breastfeeding support. Tirza's journey began with a cross-country adventure with her own newborn, where she discovered the challenges of traveling with breastfeeding baby. Determined to find a solution, she stumbled upon the power of freeze-dried breast milk, a method not widely known among the mom community. Inspired by her own experience, Tirza founded Milk by Mom to share the game-changing solution with mothers everywhere. Today, we'll delve into the science behind freeze-dried breast milk, its nutritional benefits, and how it's transforming the lives of breastfeeding mothers across the country. So whether you're a new mom navigating the challenges of breastfeeding or a seasoned pro looking for innovative solutions, this episode is for you. So without further ado, let's welcome Tirza. Welcome, Tirza.
Thank you so much, Samantha. I appreciate it. It's always so fun and slightly awkward to hear your bio read. So you did such a great job, so thank you.
Well, you have a lot to be proud of, and we all need to celebrate ourselves. And I know, especially as moms and women, sometimes have problems doing that. So I always love the intros are my favorite thing because some of my guests are like, wait, who's that you're talking about? Who, oh, I didn't know that I did all of this. And it's just a great testament to how wonderful all of my guests are. So I love that you appreciated it. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So to start each episode off, we have our wine, and win of the week segment. This is where we share our favorite bottle of wine, vent about something that has been bothering us, and celebrate our recent victories. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. So what is your wine, WINE of the week?
Ooh, so I had to think about this because I'm currently more in a tequila era and like mezcal. But I think I can't ever go wrong with a really solid glass of good Cabernet or Bordeaux. I can't say that I'm like super brand loyal. I think wine is one of those things. It's really hard to be brand loyal. There's so many different wines out there, but a good full body wine cab always speaks to my heart.
So we are getting into summer, excuse me, and margarita season. What is your favorite tequila? I always like hearing it.
Favorite tequila? I don't know. I mean, I have to think about what sort of Blanco my husband has all sorts, but there's is it the Herradura? He got like a bottle from the previous employer that was like a really good bottle of Herradura. It was like sipping tequila and it was slightly sweet at the end. So not really for margaritas. But definitely a good sipping tequila.
I want so badly to get into tequila, so that's why I was like, "Ooh, I wonder." It's just never been on my palate, and I'm like, I know it's like kind of one of the better liquors for you. So maybe this will be my summer of sipping tequila. I don't know.
I'll come back to you after the podcast with a couple recommendations.
Yes, please
you
do.
give that a shot.
Yeah. So, what is your WHINE of the week?
Oh gosh, so. As any mom, I'm sure out there can relate, I have 2 little ones and they are both sick. So I'm feeling like I'm really trying not to get sick, but I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. And my parents were just here last week helping out with the kiddos and they've left. So my tribe is gone. The village is gone. So
yeah.
My line is, they're sick and I hope I don't get sick. Try to boost all I can with my immune system so avoid getting sick for the weekend.
I hope that I'll keep sending healthy vibes over. So what is your win of the week?
Ooh, okay, win of the week. I'm really excited. I have a couple wins, but I think I'll go with we just landed our summer intern. So we're gonna have an intern join us for the summer and I am really excited. There is just a ton of work that we need help with. And it's just a great opportunity being a small business. Like they get to wear a lot of different hats. So I take myself back to those days and the thought of having like another able-bodied, person around to be able to help with things. It's been very exciting for me.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's a huge step in a small business. I mean, it's not really small when you have interns. You're big.
We're small, but
Yeah.
but we are growing. So
Yeah.
that's the exciting thing, right? And
That's
like
amazing.
being able to kind of pay it forward the way that people did it for me when I was
Mhm.
in that position, looking for summer internships and feeling like you have the credibility and authority to be able to actually provide somebody with an enriching experience for the summer. For sure. I'm excited, proud, all the above.
That's awesome. Well, congrats. And I always like to ask my guests, what is one struggle you've overcome leading to where you are now? And what is one thing that you are most proud of in your life?
Okay, let's go with struggle. Struggle I've overcome. So I think the struggle I think overcoming is sometimes a hard one, but mom guilt is very hard. And I by no means think that I have fully overcome it because it is something that just kind of chases us around as women. But as a mompreneur, I started my business when my second daughter was just 2 months postpartum. And so there has been so much tremendous mom guilt that has come along for the ride ever since I launched my business. It just been the sacrifice that come with it. But I kind of feel like I'm in a better place now. My business is growing and I'm starting to be able to provide myself with more room to do things with her that perhaps I couldn't do before when I was just a one person show. So that's, I think, a struggle that I've overcome with finding that balance. And then what is one thing I'm most proud of? And this may be cliche, but it's definitely my daughters. I am so proud of being a mom and the daughters that I am raising, although they challenge me to a core. At times I'm
That's
like,
supposed to be a good thing, right?
oh my
That's what
God,
they
I'm
say.
like, sometimes see my oldest daughter, I'm like, gosh, she's such a brat. But at the core,
Yeah.
she is like truly such a wonderful kid. And, you know, it's just really great to see like the tiny little humans that we're raising and creating to be beautiful both inside and out. So, you know, that is always my number one priority and something that I, you know, am committed to doing the rest of my life no matter what. So
It really is just the coolest thing. And I think about it, if not daily, weekly, just seeing them grow from these little beings that couldn't do anything. And then you really are in charge of shaping so much of their being. And they obviously have their own personalities, but teaching them kindness and love and acceptance is our job, which is crazy to think about, and it is something to be so proud of. So I don't think it's cliche. I think just, it's so true.
it's great. I think it's just it's also you just have we have so much more information nowadays in terms of like what it is. Like you know, I was blessed to have great parents and they did the best that they knew how to do within the tools that they had that they were taught, right? And we have so much more information on the things that you should and shouldn't do for kids and what creates certain childhood traumas. And you know, you realize you're like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to mess them up. And so it's hard. I mean, it's been such a journey of self-discovery. You can talk to any parent, and particularly my 3.5-year-old. God, she makes me look in the mirror sometimes. And I'm like, oh gosh, I need to process whatever's happening.
Right. Yeah. And
yeah.
my daughter is also, she's pretty much 3.5 as well.
Yeah.
And the things that come out of her mouth, and sometimes the things that sound like me that she's mimicking when she's talking to my almost 2-year-old, and I'm like, hey, is that the way that I say about
I've had to tone
sometimes?
some things down when I've been like, oh my gosh, that's definitely a mini me, and she's learning that from me and nobody else. And how do I like it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
There's lots of good things though that she said. She yesterday was so cute. I was laying down on the couch for a minute and she comes and kisses my head and she's like, "Good night, kid," and like walks away and like 'cause she's like pretending she's the mom, I guess. I was like, that was so sweet. I would like so they're like these little Sour Patch Kids, terrors, and then the sweetest little things ever.
How could you forget when they're terrors because they just have us strapped around their fingers?
I know. So I always also start off with some fitness in the Running My Mom. What is your favorite way to stay active?
Ooh, I love this because I definitely believe in that. I see being active is so important. I'm a big believer in like health first. And if we're healthy, we're better, we're able to take better care of our kids. And so it's just, again, it's a a fundamental thing from a parenting. I really love lifting, like heavy. I don't do like a CrossFit Olympic lifting, but I do believe in being like that strong mom that's like a fit mom and feeling good. So I love to, work out and try to do some lifting and kind of challenging myself to get stronger and better and stay healthy. And then I complement that with some Pilates so that it's enough of a stretch and leaning to get too buff. Although I've heard like the new physique is really about being like that strong ass mom, like that badass mom, and it's not anymore. Like super skinny, like
Yeah.
very lean. It's the perception and the image around what healthy and fit means is different, and I love that.
Yes, I love that our generation of moms especially are able to grow up where what is it, like heroin chic, was that what it was called? Like eat nothing, was
And
was
run
in.
every day and do
Ye
cardio for like 4 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's
Yeah.
much more realistic. I love that so many women are just finding their strength, and the conversation is changing. So how do you stay motivated to maintain your own fitness routine?
Yeah, I've realized that I just feel better. The way I show up for the day is better. I stay motivated by they're getting bigger. So my 3.5-year-old is in 6-7T. So my husband is half Samoan. I am 5'9", so we are by no means small people. So,
Oh my gosh, I
but you
love
still
that.
have a 3.5-year-old that wants to be lifted, I mean, there's my motivation. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, I feel like getting endorphins going makes me feel better about the day, gets me more clarity, focus. It's just a really great way to start the day, having some time that is dedicated for you. I like to work out in the morning, so
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
sets the
also
for success.
yeah. I used to be like an avid 5:30, 6 a.m. person who worked out, and then now I'm more afternoon, but I do feel the morning is when I thrive the best, and it is such a good way to start the day. I totally agree with that.
Well,
So
however you
let's
get it, right?
Yeah,
Let's do
yes. However, especially as a mom, it's like whatever
it.
time you can
Totally.
do it, let's do it. So let's get into a little parenthood. So tell us about your family.
Yeah. So I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I am married. My husband, like I said, he's American, half Samoan. His name's Craig, and we live here, and we have two beautiful little girls. And my oldest daughter is Tirza Sophia, just like me. And she is 3.5, almost 4. And then my youngest is 1.5, coming up to 2. And her name is Gianna. And we're not close to any family, so that's why my line was like my tribe is
Yeah.
one. When they say it takes a village to raise a family, it definitely takes a village, and I would do anything to live closer to family, particularly in this season, right? Where you
hmm
just, it's great to have more support, but we do most of what we can with it, right?
Yes, it's definitely the village is something. And I said recently on a podcast, like I grew up around the corner from my grandparents and my aunts, and like we just were always going to go here, go there, and to see the way that the village. You didn't realize it growing up. You just thought it was like normal that, and then you see, oh, my parents needed someone to take us here, and they didn't even have to really second guess it because someone was always around. And to
Mhm.
see so many, I feel like people aren't living in those communities with their family now. It's everyone's traveling, and it's just not as close. I feel
It
people aren't
is.
living as close, which is a huge part of why parenting is insanely hard.
Yes. And there's a lot of other reasons, but yes, I
Well, yeah.
agree. My mom, I'm originally from Costa Rica. I was born in Costa Rica,
Oh,
American, but my mom, like, it was the same thing. My grandfather built their house, and my mom's was on one side, my aunt's was on the other, and they all connected through the backyard. So
oh, I love that.
it was like my dream is to live in a compound like that.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever have. Some people are listening to this and be like, "You're nuts! Like that's
Yeah.
the last thing I want. I want at least like is their code of separation." But um,
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say for people who enjoy like their parents and their in-laws, like yeah, it's a great idea, but if not, just get through this part because
exactly, just
I get
fast
it.
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were you least prepared for in parenthood?
Ooh, what was I least prepared for? You know what? I think the overwhelm that comes with wanting to just be able to do everything and do everything so well, and then also just having to let go. I think before you have kids, you have a way of being able to have set standards around the way you maintain your house, the way things, the different schedules, routines. And so as a parent, like learning to let go is incredibly valuable for me. I'm very type A. And a little
I
bit of
get
a perfectionist, so that was challenging. But it also gets slightly easier. You just need to make sure you don't fully lose yourself in it.
it. Yeah. It's hard. The control part is something. Again, I totally agree that I had to let go of so much of it, and you just can't. You just
Yeah.
can't control so many. You can't control if you have a good sleeper. You can't control if you have a good eater. You can try, but it doesn't mean
Mm.
it's like the only thing in
Yeah.
life that you cannot control and the most difficult.
The other thing too, was just that I had never really heard of mom guilt, and I know I
Mhm.
mentioned that already. That has been a very challenging part of my life for the last few years. But the fact that our husbands don't get it
Mhm.
was like shocking to
Yeah.
me. And it was just like the realization of like how fundamentally different we are as,
Yeah.
as from a sex perspective. I mean, my husband's a wonderful dad, but I think those are two things that kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, it's funny that you say, like, sometimes I'll say, like, to my "Oh, don't you feel guilty?" And he'll be like, "No, like, why would we feel guilty? The kids are at his parents' house or something, and they'll be fine there," or, "No, I don't feel guilty about, working this extra day." I'm like, "Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
nice that you don't feel
They
that."
don't
But
they don't sit what it is.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
So what is your parenting style?
Yeah, so I would say I am a very loving, like we definitely follow like gentle parenting. I'm a little stricter than my husband is, that's for sure. There's the Latina Hispanic, like, there's boundaries and we get a little fiery. This was the Midwest, so he's like not fiery like I am. It works.
Balance,
But
balance.
yeah, I mean, I think more than anything is fundamentally like providing a safe, loving environment for our kid, but also understanding that by doing that, you can also provide an environment that has like healthy boundaries, right? And for them to understand that. And that's one of the hardest things to figure
Mhm.
out. Like, how do you do it in a way that is still gentle, but like there has to be boundaries, right? I'm discovering that
Yeah.
with my 3.5-year-old, like she needs boundaries. Kind of
Yeah,
run
it's
circles around us.
yeah, you're like, you don't wanna traumatize them by, like, yelling at them, but then
Yeah.
also you're like, "What do you do?" Like, today, we had an incident, like, an hour before this, but we keep telling them both of them, I mean, Parker can't really understand, but, like, to stay away from the bathroom doors, because they slam them shut, and Willow knows, and she slams the door shut, and Parker's finger gets, like, all
Yeah.
thankfully everything was okay with it, but she runs away because she knows that she's not supposed to do that. And I'm like so angry at her, and he's crying, and I'm like trying to figure out how am I supposed to, I don't want to scream at her. And I'm like, I need you to just go sit on the couch for 2 minutes while I deal with it. I'm like, and then you're like thinking after, did I deal with it right? Will she learn in the future? I don't know. It's all so confusing.
You know what? I think one of the most valuable things we can show our kids is that we are not perfect and that
Hmm.
we don't expect them to be perfect,
Yeah.
but that it's important for us to be able to say sorry, right? And so, like you
Right.
said, I mean, sometimes I overreact or I do things, and I definitely will go back and I think it's really important for me to be able to say sorry. And hey,
Yeah.
mommy shouldn't have done that, and I don't
Right.
like feeling this way. I'm sorry, and for them to learn what sorry is and to learn how to say sorry themselves is
Mhm.
really important for
Yeah, and
sure.
I think our, like, parents didn't do that ever. Never.
It took our time with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. But it's okay. It's again, you learn how important seeing those skills
Mhm.
as a role model and having those role models in front of you. And um, again, I mean, my parents were wonderful and fabulous, but that
Yeah.
was not one of their strong suits in
I
terms of
I can
saying
totally
sorry.
relate.
And I can attest that it probably would have been nice at times.
So besides saying sorry, what is one piece of advice you would give other parents?
Oh, okay. One piece of advice I would give other parents is finding something for yourself, right? And that looks very different for everybody. And I know we talk about self-care and how important that is. It's not to be redundant. It is so important. But just finding something that is still true to you, I think is really good. And whether that means like, hey, having a walk or having time to go to a coffee shop and read a book and just have a coffee by yourself, or going to a class or a mommy date.
Mhm.
It's hard when you first become a parent. You lose yourself in parenthood and motherhood and so forth. But finding a way to stay true to yourself is really important. And so
Yeah, I think
that would
that's
be
great
it.
advice. All right, so let's get into Milk by Mom. So talk to us
Yay.
about what inspired you to start Milk by Mom and explore the world of freeze-dried breast milk.
Yeah. So Milk by Mom, for everybody that doesn't know, maybe I'll start there. So we are a
Mhm.
breast milk freeze drying service. And so what we do is we turn your frozen breast milk into powder. And so it provides you with the convenience of formula, but all the goodness of your breast milk. And it preserves the nutrients, antibodies, and it's good for 3 years. So
Wow.
it's such a game changer. And as a mom, how I discovered it or how I even stumbled it was being a mom, right? And I was in corporate America, working, pumping, breastfeeding, traveling, and I was looking for a solution on for how to travel with my child while I was doing all of these things and have breast milk. And so I discovered that there was this thing called breast milk freeze drying, and I was in med device, and so I've really been really grounded in research and clinical evidence, and I fully vetted the process and discovered that it's actually been around for decades and really well documented. And so I gave it a shot. I was on a wait list with this one company, and then it was just such a game changer for me that I said, this is amazing. I have to make this more widely available for moms everywhere. And so fast forward, here we are, like Milk by Mom came to be, right? From just being
Yeah,
a mom and seeing a need.
that's awesome. So can you explain the process of freeze-drying
Yeah.
breast milk and how it differs maybe from other storage methods?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. So we'll start about with like freeze drying. So freeze drying, I want to differentiate very quickly, is very different to dehydration.
Yeah.
So dehydration is where you use very high heat, and then that is what really can harm some of that really good stuff that we want to preserve in our breast milk, like the immunoglobulins, the proteins, the enzymes, etc. So freeze drying uses a very low heat. So let's talk about freeze drying specifically. So freeze drying consists of four main steps. So we receive frozen breast milk, and then we put it into our chambers that do freeze drying. So it's really, really cold. The chamber has a vacuum pump that comes on, and so there's suction going on in there. And then there is very, very low heat underneath the plates, and that creates the water in the milk to become vapor. And the vapor
Okay.
is then pulled out in the breast milk in a process called sublimation. And so
Wow.
because it's that low heat and then done in this way, you are able to preserve all that good stuff that I just mentioned with the breast milk. And once it's done, I mean, what remains is just this powder form that you then reconstitute with water. And so we do it. Every mom has a very specific reconstitution amount that's specific to their breast milk, but it's just like having formula, right? So if you're in Disney or at the park or just doing anything, like traveling and wanting to go through TSA, all you need is to have a little bit of warm, purified water and you're good to
Wow,
go.
so cool. That was I wasn't honestly sure what the difference of freeze drying versus the dehydration, right?
Dehydration.
Yeah, sorry. I had heard of dehydration, but I had not heard of freeze drying. And so that's really interesting to know, the difference of them and that they both are like in powdered form, right? And
Yeah,
then you
so it's
can,
really important
but
that they're fundamentally different.
right, yes, they're different, obviously, in all of this. So what are some common misconceptions maybe about freeze-dried breast milk that you've encountered through this process?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that a couple things. One is getting it confused with dehydration, right? And
Yeah.
so that is just one thing that immediately comes to mind. The second is that because it's a fairly new concept, I mean, new concept to consumers, right? As from a business, like milk banks have been using it around the world. It's been studied for decades. So it's just kind of new to consumers. And so because of that, I think there isn't enough evidence to support this as a viable alternative, which is fundamentally not the case, because I definitely spent a lot of time doing the research. We have a lot of clinical papers that we have on our site, which I'm happy to share with anybody who is really like gung-ho with the data. Like, by all means, we've purchased all the papers. So I think that's one of the biggest things, just the misconception around it. Another, I think, misconception, and this may also be attributed to just as an industry and perhaps competitors may position themselves, is that by no means is this the only way, right? So I think it's really important to know that per CDC, you can still keep your milk in the freezer or deep freezer. It's only good for 6 to 12 months, depending on the type, whereas freeze drying is good for 3 years. So you get 3 additional years to your milk. I mean, that's huge. But that being said, I mean, you can still keep it in your freezer. So it's not like I'm trying to create like a fear base. You must do this.
Right.
It is very subjective to every family and their needs. And so we can go through that in more detail, but I think that's kind of a misconception as well, like that this needs to be the only thing you do, or as a company, like you're trying to get them to do all their milk and, kind of fear them into thinking that, and that's not the case.
Yeah. But especially for someone who like maybe is an overproducer, that I mean, this is like the perfect thing. And I've seen so many people, say, oh, I'm going to waste all of this because it's been in the deep freezer for the amount of time that it can. And to have that option is just amazing. So how do you ensure that the safety and quality of the freeze drying process is up to standards?
Yeah, so we have a very stringent process. So first and foremost, we have a facility that is dedicated to the processing of breast milk exclusively. So I would just say, make sure that anybody who's exploring this, like, make sure you vet that out, because we're not all in that way. But our facility is exclusively dedicated to the processing of breast milk. We have very stringent protocols in place in terms of sanitation, sterilization, even guidelines in terms of what you need to be wearing and PPE and so forth. So we definitely have those in place. Our facility is CGMP compliant per the FDA. So in terms of what is the food and safety handling requirements, we are also, as an industry, not currently regulated by the FDA. That will be changing. And so we are in the process of getting CGMP certified, so that once that becomes regulated, we'll be ahead of the game. But like I mentioned, we are compliant with what those guidelines are today.
That's awesome. That's great to be ahead of everything. So when it does become, you won't have to change anything, which is great. How about the nutritional benefits of freeze-dried breast milk, maybe compared to other storage methods? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a lot of data that shows that freezing your breast milk is fine for 6 months in a regular freezer, 12 months in a deep freezer. There is also significant data out there that shows that after the 3-month mark, there is a significant loss in nutrition. So if you think about anything that you put in a freezer, right? Let's say you have a piece of meat or vegetables or broccoli, the longer it's frozen, the more its nutrition is going to decline over time. So that's just common sense with anything, and same goes with your breast milk. So by freeze drying it, you are basically like locking the nutrition in place in that stamp of time. So if you are a person that is very passionate about preserving all of its nutrition, freeze drying earlier is better because there is that decline in nutrition after the 3-month mark. I'd say that also with the caveat of saying per CDC, it's okay to have it in the freezer longer. But there is freeze drying preserves its nutrients and antibodies in the moment that it is freeze dried. So you are really getting additional life to your breast milk and preserving it in a way where it doesn't decline over time during that 3-year shelf life that once, it's sitting in your, it's not continuing to decline.
That's awesome. And that's, I never thought of it also that way of, breast milk as a like compared to broccoli, the longer you keep it frozen, the more kind of nutrition that it does lose, which does make sense. And so that is such a great solution to that. So do people send in their breast milk? How often do they have to send it in? Monthly, quarterly? How do you kind of decide that?
Yeah, so I think it's important to note that from a breast milk perspective, every mom's journey is so different. So you could have had a great supply with your first baby, and then with the second baby, the supply is just not as good. There's all these different factors in place. You could have struggled with the first, and then with the second, it goes well. So breast milk is never, your supply is never the same. So I think every mom's journey is different depending on where they are. And so for some moms, building up a stash of 200 ounces is all they're able to do throughout their journey. Whereas other moms who may have an oversupply are able to build up a stash of, 600 ounces monthly. So it really depends on the mom and their specific needs. We definitely have repeat customers. But we have those instances where we have moms that have an oversupply who will reach out to us and we'll put together a custom plan for them in general. Shipping is the way that it works. So we are local to Phoenix, Arizona. So if you're local, you can come and drop it off. And for those moms that are fortunate enough to be in the Phoenix area, it's really great because they could come monthly and do it. For other moms who are shipping it in, they might wait and have a bigger stash before they send it in monthly, just because we do ship it priority overnight. We use pharma grade coolers that stay cold for up to 96 hours, but we ship it overnight to just ensure that in case there are any sort of delays or anything with the carriers, we are being able to stand by the fact that it'll arrive frozen.
Yeah, that's great. So what do you think sets Milk by Mom apart from other breast milk storage solutions on the market? What do you think the biggest thing is?
Yeah, so I think a couple things. One is that our facility is exclusively dedicated to the processing of breast milk, that we process. We do everything. Your milk arrives here, it gets processed, it gets packaged, it gets shipped out, everything from our facility. So I know that some other competitors are not doing that. I think the other thing too is that we are moms first. And so we are really committed to working with our moms, and just if it means taking a hit on her profit, like we really are wanting to make our service more widely available. So we have HSA, FSA payment plans. We're really just committed to helping moms everywhere. And with that is just helping to build a community. I think that things that I've heard, and that was my number one goal starting a company, I was like, I want to be personable, I want to be relatable. I want people to feel like they are talking to a human and that this doesn't become a business transaction, because I mean, breast milk is so emotional. Being a mother and being in that new season of motherhood is very emotional. And so I felt like we needed to provide a place where women felt seen, supported, that they could trust, but also just helping to support them in this time.
So building a community, is important, obviously, too. So how do you educate and raise awareness within the mom community about the benefits of freeze-dried breast milk?
Yeah, we're just skimming the surface, honestly, so that there's a lot there. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that we need to tackle, in that just creating awareness about the fact that this exists, that it's safe, that it's tested, vetted. And so we do a lot of things locally with mom centers and places where we can get moms. Also, we're doing a lot of podcasts, like being here today, right? Where we're hoping to reach more moms so that they know we're speakers, listeners. You could be an aunt, you could be a grandma, you could be, you don't necessarily need to be the mom or husband, right? So trying to do that, trying to do trade shows, reach out to clinicians, because I think there's a lot that needs to happen from a clinician base. So talking with pediatricians, lactation consultants, OBGYNs, and educating them as well, so that they can provide this as a resource. I remember being the mom, right? And like finding out that this existed and being so taken aback, but also so pissed that nobody had told me about this. And I had a doula, a postpartum doula. I worked with a lactation consultant, a pelvic floor, my OBGYN, my pediatrician, like nobody
Mhm.
provided that resource. And as a new mom, you're overwhelmed with the number of resources. Like this was a really valuable one that I feel like would have really helped me prior to me discovering it. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
I agree 100% with that because like yesterday I had an interview with another woman from the Create Her event that
Oh,
does
awesome.
blood banking. And then with you, I didn't know about either of these options when having my kids. And so there's so much great, information that we kind of aren't receiving from maybe our doctors or our doulas or whoever, or our consultants. And so that's one of the things that I personally love about having this podcast is getting stuff like that out, because I don't want moms to not know, like I didn't. Like, I'm thinking my mind is going as we're having this conversation, oh, I wish I would have known about that. I could have done it, but too far now and no more kids for me. But hopefully someone that I know can do it instead.
I hear you. Amen to that because it's just
Yes.
there's so much more than even when I first had our first kid, right?
Yeah.
Like 10
Yeah.
years ago. Like it's just
It's
it's
crazy.
exciting. I think that there's been this for the longest time there's still a lot that needs to be done to support women in
Yes.
pregnancy and just making things more of a standard of care and part of the continuum of care instead of something that is elective or a nice to have. And so
Mhm.
I think that the industry as a whole is going in the right trajectory, but there's still so much to be done
Yeah.
to support moms.
Totally agree. So what challenges did you maybe face when you started Milk by Mom, and how did you overcome those?
Gosh, challenges. So it's very labor intensive.
Mhm.
For the long time, it was a one person show. So how do
Yeah.
you're doing everything. We have a very much, we only work on one mom's milk at a time. Everything
Okay.
gets thoroughly clean, sanitized in between batches. So when it was just me, it was a lot going on. But now as I realize that really the challenges is helping, how do you reach more people, right? And
Right.
so I think for that is, you have to have really big marketing dollars to be able to afford to massively run a campaign where you're creating such nationwide
Mhm.
awareness and education around it. So we're trying to do it, like a guerrilla marketing,
Yeah.
boots on the ground, doing it every day. But I think that's definitely been a challenge. As a mom, you were like, this is such a game changer. Like, I'm just gonna bring this business and faucet's gonna turn on pretty naively, right? Like, as much
Yeah.
as your idea could be the most innovative, amazing thing, there's a lot there in terms of sales and generating awareness and just boots on the ground every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. So being a new business, where do you see Milk by Mom evolving to in the future? And what impact do you hope that it makes on the
Yeah.
breastfeeding community?
There's so much there.
Yes.
So I have a medical officer on board. We also have a board of advisors, and I mean the ideas really honestly are limitless in terms of where we want to go. Do we want to grow this industry and eventually make it so that all the NICUs across the country
Hmm.
are providing, infants with breast milk, freeze-dried breast milk instead of formula. Right. So
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
the really cool thing. I mean, I would really love to see our business just grow in terms of footprint across the country. That would be really excited. We have our eyes and hopes on international markets as well. And so that's also in the works. We have some other really exciting things that are in the works that I think will be very complementary and really help to make this more widely available, which is ultimately the goal. And as it grows, I mean, I really do hope to see that more and more women can take advantage of this and we can overcome challenges like the cost of shipping and so forth, which
Yeah.
is, at times prohibitive and that, I wish I could get rid of the shipping altogether, but that's just not the way it works.
What feedback have you had from healthcare professionals about that option of freeze
Yeah.
drying?
So there is some skepticism with some. And so with those, it's a matter of providing them with the clinical evidence. So my chief medical officer is a double board certified neonatologist specializing in pediatrics. So if necessary, have a conversation where she can really help to drive that conversation clinician to clinician. But I would say more times than not, like once they fully understand and grasp it, they're like, this is incredible. They truly do believe in this as a very viable and sustainable alternative to breast milk storage. So we've found that we have actually a lot more support than skepticism, and that's really exciting and encouraging to see.
That's amazing. Yeah. What advice would you give a mother who maybe is considering it but unsure?
Yeah, so I would say do your homework. We're not all equal. There are certainly several competitors out there that I would gladly recommend and stand by it. I do believe that competition is healthy. Like,
Hmm.
look how many birth workers there are out there, how many doulas, how many, there's plenty to go around. So I think that more than anything, do your research, make sure that you're using somebody that is not doing this in their garage, is not doing this in their kitchen. From a sterility and cross contamination, I wouldn't recommend that. And all it takes is one sick baby for our industry
Yeah.
to be seriously impacted. So definitely do your research, and go with a company that is vetted, and preferably dedicated to just exclusively managing breast milk.
All right. Is there anything that I didn't get to? I can ask
I would
those.
say so. There's a couple of things I would want to add. So one is when when are some good times to use breast milk freeze drying, right? Like it's not a one size fits all. So definitely anybody that lives in areas where you have earthquakes or hurricanes or have any sort of power outages where your breast milk stash could be at risk, that's always, a safe bet.
Hmm.
If you're an overproducer in your freezer and you're dying to get your freezer space back, like by all means, let's get your breast milk freeze dried. Going for trips. So if you're preparing for summer travel, like summer travel is upon us, and so
Hmm.
that means that you don't need to worry about traveling through TSA with ice packs or just the headache of coolers and so forth. So summer is always a really good one. Something that people don't realize is that a lot of times we can send you a cooler directly to your hotel or destination. So
Oh,
it's not
wow.
just as you're getting ready to leave the house to bring it
Hmm.
with you, but like if you are pumping and you're out traveling, we can send you that kit to wherever you are, and that way you don't have to worry about bringing breast milk home or traveling home with that frozen breast milk or liquid breast milk. The other could be just if you're looking to have a little bit of convenience, right? So if you're fortunate enough to have a little bit of a village around you, and so you want to have some food at grandma's and sisters, and so that gives you a little bit of flexibility and being able to rely on your village to help do that, as well as a
Hmm.
daycare. And then the last, which is something I will double click on, is if you have high lipase. So high lipase is an enzyme that we all have as women in our breast milk. And what it does is it breaks down the fat in our breast milk so that the babies can digest our breast milk. Some moms, including myself, have high lipase. And so high lipase basically means that once your breast milk is frozen or refrigerated, the lipase kind of turns on and starts doing its job. And if you have more of it, then what could happen is that it can slightly alter the taste of your milk. So you have a little bit of a metallic aftertaste, or it could taste, smell fishy, and like you're like, oh my God, my milk is frozen, like rotten, it's bad. And so that's not the case. There's some babies that will take it, no problem. And then other babies that can't handle that difference of either smell or slightly taste and reject mommy's milk. So freeze drying neutralizes the enzyme by deactivating it because the enzyme is active with water,
Mm.
with the water portion of our breast milk. And so if
Oh,
you
cool.
remove the water, it deactivates it. So it helps, by also making the effect of it milder. So we have a lot of moms that have their kids who have rejected their whole stash. And then we do a little test batch and they do it and they take milk, and then moms will send in their whole stash. So
Wow.
it's a
That's
really
really
great
cool.
option for mamas who encounter that.
That's awesome. So you've given us so much information. What is one final message you'd like to convey to moms about your freeze-dried breast milk and Milk by Mom?
Yeah. So I would say that breast milk freeze drying really changed my life. As a mom, it helped to support me and provide me with some convenience in a time where support and convenience is probably the last thing that's happening, right? Everything relies so much on mom. So it was really a game changer for me, and I would be honored to be able to help support them during this time of their lives as they're providing infants with this valuable superfood. And so if anybody has any questions or comments or concerns or just wants to chat, like it's me running the show, so I'll answer those emails, give you a call back. But I would just say definitely reach out because I have dedicated my life to doing this, and I'm really passionate about it and really believe in the power that it has in terms of helping provide nutrition for infants.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that with us. I know I learned so much, and I know that the listeners as well definitely, hopefully, got some great insight into your business, and that's amazing. So that's going to wrap up another episode of the Running Wine Mom podcast. A huge thank you to our incredible guest, Tirza, for sharing her expertise and passion for empowering breastfeeding mothers through Milk by Mom. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it. You can follow me on Instagram at the Running Wine Mom _ and Tirza, where can the listeners find you?
Yes, at Milk by Mom on all social media channels, YouTube and milkbymom.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for being our guest today. I really appreciate it.
It was so fun. It was great to see you again too. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers, and I will be back next Tuesday.